Welcome to Psychology Today. I'm your host, Wayne Hathaway. Thank you for watching. Our show is about bicycling and bicycle safety specifically. I hope Psychology Today helps inspire you to ride a bike and helps you to be more mindful about safety. We try to celebrate community members that are incorporating bicycling into their career choices or entrepreneurial endeavors, and strive to encourage others to do the same and support cycling and bike safety in general. Before we meet our first guest, I want to thank the crew here behind the scenes and thank the producers, Northwest Bicycle Safety Council as well. We have two segments today, and I'm real happy that I can consider both guests today close friends of mine. I know each of them personally, and we have our first guest here today. It's Michael Midghall, and so let's get started. Welcome, Mike, and thank you for joining. So let's start with a little history. So if you can tell people a little bit about yourself, what you do to fill your days, your family, what brought you here today.
Sure, Wayne. So I've been an Oregonian now since 1995. Actually, 94. I came here on an internship with Intel. And I just fell in love with the state of Oregon, the beauty. Every weekend we would go away to a different spot. We'd go down to Eugene, to the coast. We went skiing up at Mount Hood. So I really quickly loved Oregon and wanted to come back. And so in 95, I came back. I got married on the Oregon coast. I have two beautiful daughters, teenage daughters now. One's a freshman at the University of Oregon, and the other's a sophomore at Sunset High School. And I worked for Intel for about 6 years. Then I started a market research business. And my days now are filled a little bit with the market research business, but my real passion has become sustainability, and it's something that I didn't expect, but has become really important to me. So I'm researching sustainability in ways that all of us can be more sustainable, and I'm also combining that with well-being and doing research and studying and that. And I want to put the two of them together into a game, which I think we're going to learn a little bit more about.
Yeah. So let's dig into that. Talk a little bit about how you go from working at Intel. You got these two kids you're chasing around, and you've got, you talked a little bit about the market research, but how do you match that with getting into the sustainability living and well-being? What drove you into that?
Yeah, I think it's been a fairly long process, and really most of my life I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and to find myself today working on sustainability, and it's really quite a change. And how I got to this point is sort of ironic. I was trying to figure out what's going to be the next really big industry to take off, and I wanted to sort of hitch my market research business to that, and I wanted specifically to work in the area of new product design research. And so I was doing a lot of Googling on the web and trying to understand what are going to be some of the next big industries, and kept coming across sustainability and climate change. And the more I researched it, the more I thought, wow, this is going to be huge. And again, my intention was, I'm going to make a killing off of this, profit-wise. And now I realize that there's not really a lot of profit in it, and it's really just something that I'm passionate about. So sort of a background way in order to discover sustainability in particular. And well-being sort of came about connected to sustainability, in that I realized that I think most people have an impression of sustainability as sort of a restriction of things that they're already doing today. And so I was really looking for a way to make it more of a positive and really encouraging thing for people to want to make shifts in their life. And so the well-being component, everyone wants to be happier.
Yeah.
So if there are systematic ways and changes that we can make to our individual lives to increase our well-being and at the same time be more sustainable for ourselves and for society and for the environment, then it's a win-win situation, I think.
So that's cool, an indirect way to get from where you thought you'd be, jumping into it as an entrepreneur and now having a passion. What were some of the hardest? Well, can you, before we jump into that, if you were to give a broad overview to the people that are watching of what you started and how you've started to build it, what would that sound like?
Well, sustainability is a very broad topic, and so initially what I'm working on is a game that will be a team-based competition, and each individual will try to increase their well-being, and they'll try to or decrease their carbon footprint. And to increase well-being, there's really 5 major components, and the acronym PERMA, which stands for positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. So we're trying to increase and strengthen all of those things, which are, I think, generally considered good for everyone. And at the same time, we're trying to reduce, in the first instantiation of the game, individuals' carbon footprint. And there are 5 main categories in which individuals contribute to the excess greenhouse gas problem that we have today. And they are in the areas, or the habits of transportation, home energy, so heating and cooling and electrifying our homes, our diets, and consumption, both consumption of products and services. So by systematically reducing each of those components of the carbon footprint, you're able to reduce, you're able to achieve greater sustainability, and individuals are able to reduce their carbon footprint by concentrating on those 4 items. So
sounds like a lot, though.
Yeah.
A lot of changes.
What was the question again?
No, it was the broad overview, and I think you covered it.
Okay.
So if I were somebody that had no idea where to start with all of that, let's start with this. Like, this show tries to encourage people to get out on a bike. How does that tie into this movement? How does that tie in?
Yeah, great question. So earlier I mentioned one of the components to our carbon footprint is in the area of transportation. So what I'm trying to do right now is to consciously transfer some of my normal car driving miles to bicycle riding miles, right? So if I can displace trips in which I'm normally driving in my car with riding on my bicycle instead. So going to church every Sunday, for me, that happens to be about a 35-mile round trip. Going to the grocery store, picking up my groceries, going to yoga studio or the gym 4 or 5 times a week. Those trips add up, and if everyone starts doing that, that can really add up to be a big reduction in emissions and pollution that's in our air now.
Yeah, and so tie that back. So we've had this conversation lots of times. Tie that back, like the biking part of this, back to if you create a, what I understand is if you put it somewhere where you're aware of it, then that creates a behavior. And I think that's, tell me if I'm wrong, is that a part of where if you create a game where people are bought into it, they would track, these sorts of things, that I am now biking for X amount of time during my week, or is that something that is included in this?
Yeah, there's a measurement component to the game, and there's a whole point system that's around that. So the conscious reduction of your carbon footprint, there's points that are allocated for that, as well as for increasing your well-being, there's points. In fact, trying to increase your well-being and decrease your carbon footprint at the same time is what will enable someone to maximize their points in the game. Does that answer your question
totally
pretty
does.
much?
Yeah. So it's not just about biking though. There's a lot more. If somebody is just starting out and saying, I want to be more aware of my carbon footprint, what other things outside of, okay, don't get in the car as often, what other choices, life choices?
Just in the transportation sort of sector of your carbon footprint, you can go and buy a Prius or buy an electric car, right? So that'll do quite a bit, as long as you're also buying something like clean energy, or you're powering it from solar panels on your roof, those sorts of things. I noticed in the introduction to the show you talked about mindful bicycle riding, and that's something that I try to do, and it's related to well-being. And within well-being, I mentioned the 5 major pillars to well-being. And then there are a number of different practices that someone can get into in order to actually increase their positive emotion or their happiness, for example. One of those is meditation. And so when riding on your bicycle, you don't want to do this with your eyes closed, which is very often what a sitting meditation is, but you can ride very mindfully. And one particular meditation that I do a lot is called metta, or loving kindness. And so I kind of give a little, it's sort of like positive karma to the other riders that I go by and people on the street and things like that. And so it's a way to be more mindful, but also to enjoy the ride even more.
Yeah. What would, just before you went and started, before you just started to open up to the idea of sustainability and well-being, what other changes outside, this doesn't have to be just about biking, what other changes did you make that were, equally gratifying,
Right. So my change for sustainability, I think I mentioned earlier, it kind of started with the business and how was I going to grow my market research business. And so I started learning more about sustainability through a local organization called the Natural Step for Business. And one of the things they had us do was really understand what is it that businesses and individuals do that contributes to carbon emissions. And then we had to track it, and we were consciously trying to meet a certain goal. And that got me started on the path. And then I realized that I wanted to do more than just the business. It had to be in my personal life as well. And so I have started bicycling. I have to reduce transportation miles in which I'm polluting or contributing CO2 emissions. I have, in the area of home energy, switched to clean energy. In the area of diet, I transitioned to a vegetarian diet. Now I'm pretty much 100% vegan diet, so that's another way of reducing emissions. And I am very conscious and mindful of the purchases that I make. I honestly believe that we can continue to purchase items that make us happy, but we don't need an excess of those things. And I think if you examine your life closely, you'll see that we tend to buy a large quantity of things thinking that we're going to be it's going to make us happier, but it's really the quality of the things and the quality of the relationships that we have in life that really makes us happier. So those are all things that I'm conscious of to try and reduce my carbon footprint, but at the same time increase what I consider the quality of my life. That's what really I'm focused on.
Yeah. Where did you, if I'm somebody that is interested and I want to start making changes, but I don't know where to start.
Well,
what would you suggest?
I would say that there's a wealth of information out there today. So I'm glad that you have that interest, Wayne. First of all.
Nice, Michael.
Secondly, I would say I've got a game coming out in the future that might be very good for you. I think you could make a good coach potentially.
Maybe
of a team. Yeah, I think it involves having an interest in the subject. You know, we're not getting into sort of the scarier parts to climate change, but if you really were to delve into that, that would be something that would be, I think, a strong motivator for most people to want to make these kinds of changes. However, I don't like to lead with, fear.
no.
I think that we can all increase our well-being and improve the quality of our life and learn about sustainability and make changes that are actually going to enhance the quality of our life. But at the same time, improve the environment, improve the quality of the air and the water and even the whole food system, which we depend upon.
Yeah. How do you balance it all out? You have a busy life. You chase around a couple kids. You run your market research, and you're aware of, your sustainability and your carbon footprint. How do you balance that all out? So,
yeah. I think the answer to that is you have to find a way to slow down. Mm-hmm. Like our consumption-based lifestyle, for most of us, it really forces us to be very busy. And so a meditation practice in particular is a great way in order to slow down and really recognize, do I really need to be doing this, or can I be spending more time over here? I think those 5 pillars of well-being have really helped me in terms of giving me sort of a base of what I really want to spend my time on. And if it's outside of that, I don't want to get too invested in it. I don't want to spend too much time. Another thing is that, there's a million things that we can be concerned about, but how many things can we really make an impact on? And so that's another nice criteria to utilize for deciding on, am I just doing something to kind of fill the time, or am I doing something that's meaningful and could have real impact?
Huh. Yeah, that's good. Where do I want to take this? No, this is
you're
good.
The one with all the questions.
No. As you started to enter into this, how did you feel at the beginning? How do you feel now? Like, do you notice for yourself? How that change is affected?
Yeah, that's a good that's a good question. One of the things, this is sustainability in particular is a really big topic, and so it's hard to think that you might have an impact. And what happened to me was kind of special. When I started measuring things and I started actually noticing that I am reducing my carbon footprint, and I started, I never thought I could ride my bicycle to church 17 miles away. When you start doing those things, what you're really doing is you're aligning your actions with your values. And so that's what really kind of made a sort of an aha moment for me. Is like, I don't have to change the whole world. I just have to try to do my part, what I feel is appropriate and what will keep me energized on this. But when you receive positive emotion from aligning your actions with your values, it's fuel to keep you going, keep you motivated. And so, and it definitely increases your well-being.
Yeah, so as an example, before you started this, did you spend much time on a bike?
When I was a little kid, yeah.
Yeah, you did?
Yeah.
There's I did too.
Yeah, this is a good way for me to describe it. I thought of my bicycle as something that got me around the neighborhood, and I think you and I first met at the Bethany Starbucks. So yeah. I lived about a mile away, and so I would ride there, and I thought that's what the bicycle was for. And I mentioned my two daughters. We actually were like a family of the Electra cruiser style bicycle.
Yeah.
So it's a very casual, laid back kind of, but
Yeah.
that had a steel frame. The thing probably weighed about 100 pounds. So that's kind of how I first thought of the bicycle, and it was a little bit of a challenge to get on the bike and start going longer and longer distances. But I felt great about doing it, and one of the things that was sort of a highlight of my recent bicycling career is during the solar eclipse last year, I decided I'd take the day off, and I just rode my bike down to Mission State Park. It's about 40 miles away. So it was a round trip of about 80 miles, and I think the furthest I'd ever done before that was about 35, so it was a pretty nice increase. But it just really, for that particular day, bringing the bicycle into it really made it a special day. And so I think since then I've felt like I can go almost any distance that I want to, although I know there's a lot of people, yourself included, probably, that go a lot further than me, but mine's a little different application, I think.
But I didn't start there all at once. I like that. I had the same experience though. When I started, I thought I was just going to be the best at everything. Maybe you and I are different that way, but I had to go from, the idea that I could just do 5 miles to 20 miles and then get the benefit that I don't know if you get the same benefit, but my ability to concentrate comes with that sort of activity or following that activity. That makes complete sense to me, because when you're in your car driving almost all the time, I don't know about you, I have some music playing, and there's a lot going on, whereas when you're on the bicycle, you're at a slower pace and you really get to see a lot more. I tend to go from the west side across the river into the east side, and I go on the east side Esplanade a little bit, maybe on the Springwater Corridor. I see a lot of different people, a lot of different types of people. I see some of the homelessness that's becoming, it's always been an issue, but I think it's becoming a bigger issue here in Portland and across the country. So you're in touch with things is really the point that I wanted to make. And I love riding on Clinton Street on the east side, where the cars seem to have, instead of having the priority, it seems like they're secondary, and the bicycles have priority, and it's a great feeling going up and down that street. So things like that really, enhance the ride for me. Yeah. You ever do any events, or is it mostly the recreational?
I've not done an event yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why? No. I love what you said, though.
Yeah.
You get more in touch with your surroundings.
Yeah. So for me, that's my objective right now, is to displace car miles with bicycle miles. So that's why, although I'm not, definitely haven't ruled that out, but there's it's a great exercise. I know that, and so this is the way I'm getting that exercise now. I think if I didn't have yoga or the gym to go to, then this would be something that I would rely on more for exercise too.
Yeah. So we got about a minute. Wow. Do you want to say? Yeah, it went fast. Did you want to say? Well, what's the name of your website? It went up on the screen, but.
Oh yeah. The name of the game is actually Sustainable Lifestyles Game, and the website is the same, sustainablelifestylesgame.com. And there's some information about the game. We did a trial of this the beginning of last year, beginning of 2017, and that was before I had weaved in the well-being component, so it was really focused on reducing your carbon footprint. So there's more information that'll become available about that aspect of the game soon. And I guess if there was anyone out there that was really interested in the concept that I described for Sustainable Lifestyles Game, where you're increasing well-being and decreasing your carbon footprint, and you're doing it in a team-based competitive environment, then I would love you to go to the website, and you can contact me through there.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Mike. So we're going to go to a quick safety video, and then we're going to come back with our second guest. So,
Okay.
nice
Thanks.
work.
Thank you, Wayne.
Yeah, thank you.
With higher fuel costs comes a shift in how we travel. More of us are choosing to bike or take mass transit for some or all of our trips. When buses, trains, and bikes share the road, it's even more important to practice safe driving and safe riding. TriMet bus operators are trained to watch out for cyclists. You can help by following a few simple rules of the road. At Max and West stations, cyclists are not allowed to ride on boarding platforms or in pedestrian crossings. Walking your bike across the tracks is the safest way to enter or exit the station. Look both ways before crossing the tracks. Trains may be approaching in either direction. Be sure to cross the tracks straight on. It's dangerous to cross at an angle or right alongside the tracks. It can cause your wheel to slip into the track bed and result in a crash. To be safe, walk your bike across the tracks. Visibility is important when you're riding around buses. Always use a front white light and a rear red light at night, at dusk, and at dawn. And remember, buses have blind spots. If you can't see the operator in the mirror, the operator can't see you. Be predictable. Use hand signals when merging, turning, or changing lanes. This helps bus operators make good decisions around you, such as when to pull out from a stop, when to pass you, and when to make a turn. Ride in a straight line and avoid weaving between parked cars or between the sidewalk and the street. Take the middle of the traffic lane if it is narrow, so drivers behind you will know to move to the left lane to pass. The safest place to be around buses is in front of them. Most important, obey signals and signs. Don't ride against traffic or in areas marked bus only. These streets are closed to bikes and other vehicles. Walk your bike on the sidewalk if you need to. Buses and bikes share the right side of the road and often have to weave across each other's paths as buses serve stops. Buses aren't permitted to cross bike lanes to get into a bus stop until the bike lane is clear. If you approach a bus serving a stop, pass on the left. When you see a stop bus with the right blinker or the flashers activated, that means passengers are getting on and off, and you should pass on the left. When a bus is flashing its yield sign, don't pass. Instead, allow the bus back into the center of the lane. You should even stop if necessary. Yield signs allow buses to get back into traffic after they leave stops so they can stay on schedule. If you have a bad experience with a bus or a train, please let us know by calling 503-238-RIDE or email customerservice@trimet.org. Be sure to note the bus line, location, and the time of day. Working together, we can all share the road safely. Your help goes a long way. To learn more, visit trimet.org/bikes.
Thinking about bringing your bike on the bus? It's easy. Here's what you need to know. If you have a compact folding bike, you're welcome to bring it on board. Otherwise, you'll need to load your bike onto the rack on the front of the bus. Most standard-size bikes, and even some recumbents, will fit in the racks. Bike racks can fill up quickly during the morning and afternoon rush hour, so be prepared to wait for another bus if there's no space. To be safe, make sure the bus stops completely and get the driver's attention before loading your bike. First, squeeze the handle on the top of the rack and pull the rack forward to lower it. There are slots for 2 bikes. If the rack is empty, just lift your bike and place the wheels in one of the slots. Then, to secure it, slide the metal bar up over your front wheel or fender as close to the frame as possible. Remove any loose items or valuables from your bike. Be sure to remove panniers, child seats, or any object that could block the headlights or the operator's vision. Finally, board the bus and pay your fare. Don't forget your bike. When you're ready to get off the bus, let the operator know that you need to get your bike. Exit through the front door if you can. Again, make eye contact before you step in front of the bus. Slide the metal bar off of the wheel. Then lift your bike out of the slot and fold up the rack. Never cross the street in front of the bus unless it's stopped at a red light. And that's how you bring your bike on the bus.
These days, more and more Portlanders are using pedal power to get around, and a growing number of cyclists are combining their bike trips with transit. If you're planning on bringing your bicycle on Max, here's what you need to know. TriMet only allows single-seat, two-wheeled bikes on board, or recumbents and electric bikes the size of a standard bicycle. Trailers are not allowed. Bikes are allowed on Max only if there's room, so try to make your trip before or after rush hour. If Max is full, you need to wait for another train. When Max arrives, allow other riders to exit and enter the train first, then walk your bike on board. Inside, look for the signs that show where bikes may be stored. If a vertical rack is available, use that one first. Remember to keep your bike as clean as possible and try not to brush it against others. Always yield the priority seating areas to seniors and people with disabilities. And be sure not to block the stairwells or aisles. If you're on a train with steps at the front doors, bikes are not allowed at the top of the steps. When you practice good bike etiquette, it makes the ride more comfortable for everyone. Happy riding, and we'll see you on board.
Hey, we're back with Psychology Today. Before I introduce our second guest, I'm going to tell you about some rides out here. The 2018 cycling season's already kicked off, and there's some upcoming rides I wanted to share. One is Cookie, it's Monster Cookie, sponsored by the Salem Bicycle Club, and that's on April 29th. And it's a relatively flat metric century. And Reach the Beach is on May 19th. It's a charity event with multiple distances. And then the Portland Wheelman's Pioneer Century is June 2nd. Also a variety of routes to choose from. So those are just a few. The season's really kicked off. We encourage you to get out there and set some goals and strive for the goals and to have some fun in the events too. So we're back. We had Michael, and now we're here with Tami Syverson. Did I say that right?
Hi, Wayne. It doesn't matter.
I love it. Sorry. Welcome, Tammy, and thank you for joining Psychology Today.
Thanks for having me here.
Yeah.
What a great name to a show, Psychology Today.
Well, I can't take credit for it.
It's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah. So let's talk about your history, your family, how you came to be in Oregon, how you feel your days today, and how you used to fill them.
Wow, is this a Dr. Phil show? No.
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah, it might be. Wow, it's so funny. I'm a transplant from Oregon, from Montana. Chicago suburbs is where I grew up. Moved out to Montana, to the country. So I'm a little city girl, a little country girl. And then decided that snow and going to college would not be such a great idea. So I decided, why don't I come out here to Oregon? That'll be fantastic. And I thought to myself, I definitely don't want to be walking to school in the snow. Maybe I'll ride my bike in the snow. I remember going and visiting one of the schools in Montana and thinking, how will I ride my bike? At that point, there were no fat tires. So Oregon was a choice. I ended up here, life, family, husband, 2 kids later, a career in high tech for about 10 or 15 years. Left me thinking, what is next in my life after the kids were born? And that's how we ended up here. So that's how I don't know when we met, somewhere along the journey.
Yeah. I think it was 7 or 8 years ago.
7 or 8 years, okay, that's when it is.
Yeah.
And then I think throughout the high-tech world, somewhere in that, during one break, I remember because I worked not far from the studio, and some of the guys were going out at lunch for a bike ride. And I was like, where are they going? What are they doing? Why are they going out on a bike ride? I want to do that too. I want to do that too. I mean, I grew up in Montana where mountain biking was really just the thing. It was get a bike. I remember getting my very first bike my sophomore year in college. My parents paid for half of it. I paid for the other half and went, oh, what is this mountain biking? I can just go out my door, any road, any gravel road, single track. They didn't call it single track riding back then. It was just, that's the trailhead. If you want to get to the trail, you can ride your bike, and there were no real rules on that yet. To take that 2 kids later, and here I'm living in Oregon and it's not as easy to find mountain bike trails. What do you do?
Yeah.
And why
What
are all
did you
these
do?
people on the roads with wearing all this matching Lycra? Be careful what you judge.
Yeah, that's good.
That's my lesson here, is be careful what you judge.
Yeah,
You might too be wearing Lycra and matching kits.
yeah.
That's how I'm here. That's what.
So what do you do now?
Oh, well, after that high-tech career, it was a decision of, this is getting too busy. I'm traveling all over the world. I have 2 little boys. My husband started traveling, so we just had to make that decision in life. What is important? Is it important to be this busy, never seeing our family, or to quit? And at that point, I think it was 2008 when I quit and decided, let's do this. Let's take care of the kids, be at home. It was also after a decision to take a sabbatical and think about that decision. I want to quit, but maybe we should take a sabbatical.
Right.
At that point, I thought maybe during my sabbatical, I'll do a triathlon. I hadn't done one for 15 years. I think I was 22 when I did my first triathlon on a mountain bike. Didn't know how to swim. My same mountain bike in college. I think it was 24 maybe. Didn't know how to swim. And running was something crazy people did. Well, I just didn't run then. I was a hiker
Yeah.
and a walker.
I'm crazy, so
yeah.
I run a little bit.
I would say to people I don't run. So that was 15 years later, and I decided to work during that sabbatical, had fun with the family. We traveled, but I also trained and learned how to swim, meaning side breathing, because my first triathlon was miserable in that I was clinging to the side of the pool where the wall is. Started it with my goggles on not my eyes, my forehead.
Yeah.
And made it through side paddling, what have you, but I decided this is my time to try something new during my sabbatical, and that's when biked. Finally had a friend. I finally decided to buy a road bike after having had that mountain bike and having used that mountain bike on my first triathlon 15 years ago and taking forever to make it around the course.
Oh, yeah. I had that same experience. My first one was on a mountain bike, and I was last in.
Last in, yes.
Yeah.
They're all waiting for you. And it's our
Yeah.
little tiny town in Big Fork, Montana, and hats off to them for doing this sprint triathlon, because there were probably 25 of us that
Yeah.
did it. But it was at that moment when I remember saying, oh, this is everybody. This is not just pros. This is not just elite people that do this for a living. This is everyday people just trying to be fit and healthy. And that's what got me.
Yeah.
So when I wanted to try and make that change from corporate, being in the .com back in the boom of the 2000 era, I thought, okay, I'm going to learn to swim and I'm going to get better at biking. I'm going to trade in my mountain bike because it didn't seem to fit in Oregon. I'm going to get a road bike, and I did, and I found great friends throughout the whole process that helped me really figure out how to change a tire, how to deal with a flat, how do I ride next to somebody, what happens when a car goes by you and it's a little too close, or to get the comfort and the confidence to do that. I had a lot of people that helped me along the way.
So how would you... You're stealing my questions.
Please.
How would you? That was one of the areas that I wanted to go to, was starting out biking, and did you find it hard to wrap your mind around and then do what it is you had to get, what you had to worry about? Talk a little bit about that process. Did you just suddenly get it all and know, or it was these friends, or it was a combination of research and friends? What?
It's all of that, and then an overwhelming sense of what are you doing and why are you doing that? I would ask myself that all the time. My husband was great through all this. He just said, keep doing it, Tammy. Do what you love. Make this change. Follow your passion. If you're enjoying it, and once you get out on that bike, you get a smile on your face, then go do that. Now, saying that to a mom and a wife of 2 young kids, go buy a bike that might cost more than $1. I don't know, go buy a bike and then spend time away from your family. That's kind of I think a hard one for any person to wrestle. Mother, father, it doesn't matter your gender at all. It's go find some time for yourself to get centered, to get zen. Michael just was a great conversation about how do you find that meditation out on the bike without closing your eyes.
Yeah. When you got out on the road, were you intimidated by?
Absolutely. I'll never forget first trying out a bike at a local store and taking a spin, remembering to bring my bike shoes and my helmet and all of those things, and the salesperson there saying, "Oh, you can just take it around the block." And I thought, me take out a bike with the cars around here? No way. But I did, and it was a feeling of, this is great. How do I do this more? And where can I find comfort? And that's when I found the people. I kind of started searching out. I'd gone to cycle classes inside the gym back when you would take the bike from where the dance classes were held, and it was on the side of the room, and you would wheel the bike into the middle of the gym, set up the bike, and it wasn't like these studios now where these amazing rooms with lighting and music. It was old school, and I love old school.
Yeah. So it started to happen to you, though.
It started to happen. I didn't want to ride with anyone. I only rode with
Why?
one or two people. We might fall. I might, what happens, there's a lot of things to consider. What happens when you come up to a stoplight and you're clipped in? My biggest fear was just unclipping and not falling over. I know that sounds so silly.
You didn't want to look silly, though.
Yes, you don't also want to look well, what happens, like one of the first times I go out riding with a friend who had some experience riding in pace lines and had ridden in groups before, and she just sort of took me under her wing and said, "We can do this." And what did I do when we hit the stop sign or the stoplight? Fell over on top of her.
Right on.
And well, then it was done, and I didn't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah.
And then we did one road, West Union, around here. We went out as far as we could, and at that point it was maybe 10 miles is as far as I could think of going in total. So it was maybe 5 or 6 miles out to this one school out there. And I remember just going, okay, I'm done. We're great. Let's turn around. No flat tire. Let's go back. And it's an interesting milestone because I always remember the spot where I started, and now every time I go past that spot, which we do all the time, we've been out past that spot many times, I can look at it and go, oh, that's where you started. You're going to get past this.
So did you ever look back, like you left that job,
Yeah.
and then you spent all that time, focused on the family and your well-being? You ever look back and miss any of that or not?
Oh, I think you always do, but I think you have to see, right now I'm just seeing what's ahead of me and not where I've been, what other things I want to do. So you take the chance to take a sabbatical. I trained for the triathlon to finish that story and where I am. I can barely, I put all that together. I have great friends who support me in it. I do a first sprint triathlon. And then I'm hooked, and at that point then I had made a kind of a bet with myself. Well, if you want to quit, here's what you have to do to quit. You have to set yourself up, be healthy and happy, and you have to finish that triathlon. So it was kind of a make or break thing. Yeah. I had to finish that triathlon so that I could quit. I don't know why I did that, but we all do crazy things. And from then I did one day, finish the triathlon on a Sunday, Monday quit, and I was done, and we went to Montana for the summer with my kids, and I never would have been able to do that. And I found all the mountain bike trails that I used to ride and that were so hard before, and that you slowly get better because of the people who've supported me along the way. But yes, I think for anyone who's even thinking about kind of getting a bike, it's just, I would trust, and I trusted that you'll find people along the way that'll help you get there. Yeah. I found Wayne in a cycle class.
Yeah, this is good. I'm sitting here looking to go, oh, well, where are we? And well, I know where we are. We're right here. I remember when we met, we were in it was like the, that swim club, right?
Yeah, Master Swim.
Yeah.
Right, when I was struggling and still choking down a lot of water.
Yeah.
That's another fear of you just have to go over. You have to, just like a bike riding next to you or a car riding next to you on the road. I remember that, going to Master Swim and seeing people who could swim, who were so much faster or could actually get down to the end of the pool.
Yeah, and now you're all the way here. I remember, maybe you do too.
I don't know. We haven't discussed.
Well, like, it's kind of like one of those things where you connect the dots.
Yeah.
I was just as scared as you.
No, that is so funny.
So how do you encourage people? Like, what? It's like I'm trying to, like, I don't want to be random about this, but it really is like.
How do you encourage people? Yeah.
Because does that give back to what you do now?
Yeah, it does, but I can see your point here. I'm thinking about, it was all those moments when I was a little scared or a little nervous or very much intimidated of what someone else was doing, that I could tell inside that that's what I absolutely had to do. It's like I had to conquer that. When I would see people swimming in the pool, when I would see all the bike riders out there. And then like seeds are planted along the way. Oh, you can do this. It can get easier. Oh, you can do this. The next one was, I would go to the cycle classes and I would think, I want to do that, what that person's doing.
Yeah.
I want to help that. I want to teach it. I want to get out there and help people realize that cycling's easier than running. It's a great cardio exercise, whether you're commuting or you're using it for fitness, like making that change. I think it was an experience we probably had when we would, you go to these triathlon events and you've been training all this time, spending time by yourself. But I remember it was maybe my second or third triathlon when you realize, and they had a kids splash and dash before the adults triathlon. So now they're trying to make sure that there's like bikes, there's rides for cyclists who can do like different mileage, 25, 50, whatever mileage a bike. And then they have the kids piece. And I realized, that's it. It's the family fitness. It's everyone kind of getting together and everyone having a piece and having fun together at varying different degrees of length and difficulty. And that's my passion now. So as you can say, like in the last 8 years, what have I turned it into? I've turned it into trying to start, we worked on doing a run club at our local elementary school and helping kids kind of pull it all together and get excited at an early age that running is fun. It can be. I mean, we grew up in an age where coaches sort of told us to run because it was a punishment.
Either a punishment or you had to get fit.
Yes, but for some reason I never interpreted the fitness piece of it. It just seemed like go run lines.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So so the run club.
Yes.
Was it hard to start that, or did it just happen?
I got lucky. I walked in, my kids were switching schools. It was elementary years. We were going from preschool to elementary. A good friend had presented to the PTO, the parent-teacher organization, to fund this little run club. And I said, sure, I'll help. That's where I'm at in life. I'm volunteering and giving back. That's what I've chosen to do in these years that I'm home with the kids, is to try and spend some time doing more than just for our family. And sometimes that comes at a sacrifice when I make my kids go to running club every Thursday morning and we have to be there at 7:45 and set up the run club. And you do that for 2 years, and the kids, maybe the third year, they took a year off.
Yeah.
But they're back at it, and the kids are still running strong. And yes, it was hard, but then in some ways it was easy. Once we kind of put our heads together, I had a co-creator with it, and she's phenomenal. And I think that always helps. But there was always this inkling in the back of my mind of, could you do more with this? And if kids learn to run, could they also learn to love cycling? And could they learn to love swimming? I mean, that wasn't a sport, a triathlon, or any kind of multi-sport. That just wasn't there growing up.
No, it wasn't there.
It wasn't there.
Nobody said, hey, did you want to do triathlon too?
Yeah, nor was the thought of a parent and a child doing it together, or kind of a team triathlon. So that is my passion. I would love for there to be more families kind of doing the sport together. It's funny because the Olympics we just finished with the Olympics, and how many times did you hear those stories of the Olympian with the family who either did the same sport or encouraged them, brought them to their practices, spend a lot of time sitting on the sidelines with your kids, watching them do a sport, and maybe you could do it together.
Yeah. So one thing I remember is, I would always make the event about myself, and share a little bit about how you don't do it that way. That's not what I perceived. you would go to these events, and how would you make it more than just about Tammy?
Oh, well, for all that training is all about Tammy. Thank
yeah,
you,
of
husband and
course.
kids, for letting me do that. But yeah, we did kind of realize that it's best when it's done together, and we make food together. I think we're always trying to make sure that the event, like the kids can do something, and that we invite their friends, your family.
Yeah.
We've done events that they can do something with their friends, and I guess I've had another good friends along the way that they also did the same thing. I have a good friend who's a triathlon coach, and their family does a lot of team and training pieces, and they also helped see the vision of when that adult comes down the finish line chute, you put the kids in there with them, and they all come down together, because it's not just them, it's not just that adult who does it. The kids get something as well from that feeling, and I don't know, I think there's something to be said. One of my friends also had noticed that when I'm there's the race, and yes, I think you're trying to swim, bike, and run, and transition in between.
Sure.
But it's kind of similar to a lot of life. I took it away, and here's where I'll get deep, but I feel like you're always balancing so many things in your life, your work, your personal relationships, your family, your health, and then there's these transition points in between. Well, my one good friend always noticed, she's like, God, she's in the transition for 10 minutes. What is she doing in there? Because family and friends can kind of sit along these transition lines. And I'm in there for my swim, and I'm drying my hair, I don't know. And I'm not a pro athlete. I am doing this for fun.
Right.
There's all the bikes that are lined up next to you, and isn't that a beautiful sight, seeing that row of bikes with everyone's crazy towels and equipment so perfectly placed, or not, in my case. And I'm just having a ball. I'm chatting, laughing, joking. I probably could get a little faster in the transition. I'm also yelling at the kids. I think the transition's also sometimes where family members are meeting up, because it's not just individuals. Sometimes in those training events there can be a team event. So like maybe a kid has just done the swim, and their dad is now going to go on the bike, and mom's going to go running. I think that's one great way to make it family fun and make it appropriate for what you can do. And definitely do those kids splash and dashes when they're early.
Yeah.
They love it, right?
They do. I know
They
that my
love
son
it.
loved it.
Yeah, and you got to
He
do
talks about it still.
you have to do spaghetti feeds and whatever. You have to have big barbecues and.
Yeah, that's good. How about well, share a little bit about, you talked about the biking part. How do you get kids into biking?
Yeah.
What are you doing about that?
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a long journey, but I think along the way, I somewhere went back and did training so that I could do cycle classes. And I always had this vision. You have this beautiful room, different than when we wheeled our bike in from the gym and set it up. You have these beautiful cycle rooms in all these places around town. It's become such a boom, but no kid is ever allowed in that room. One, because the equipment, it's kind of fancy. They have to be big enough. And I've always looked at it and I was like, oh, I think kids would just really dig this. They would, because a lot of times I think we want kids out on bikes. It's not always so safe depending on where you live. If you can leave your house and have a safe route to a bike path. We're very lucky where we live. We have a lot of bike paths, but the half mile to get to the bike path is not safe for us. So we would need to ride. So I started thinking it's not like when we grew up that kids can just get on their bikes and go out easily. And so, but you still want to keep that thrill of biking and keep them fit in different ways. And maybe some kids aren't team sports kids, I think, or sometimes maybe they are, but they get aged out of it, meaning they can't stay with the pack as they get older. Maybe their skills aren't there. So anyway, that's when I said, we need to get them in a cycle room.
Yeah.
So I've found a couple athletic clubs who are willing to, have kids in at a certain age, and we teach them how to do bike fits. It is not a fancy bike fit, but it works in terms of height relative to the handlebars as best as we can. We teach them safety. They're the first ones to fly their feet out of the wheels and the pedals, and wah! And
Right on.
I call it the Pac-Man clap. The Pac-Man will come and eat their heels. And so the kids are loving it.
Where are you doing that?
Right now I'm at our local athletic club at Bethany Athletic Club, but I've done it at other clubs, and it's packed every week, and we're keeping cards, what we've done to keep track, because the kids like goals. Just like with the running club, we had them achieve a marathon over the course of a school year, which literally translates to about 1 mile a week. And a kid can run or walk 1 mile a week. You know, that's easy. So they get real sense of accomplishment. And so with the run club, we track their miles. With the cycle, I don't know what I'm calling it. My kids call it cycle cool, like psychology.
Yeah.
They call it cycle cool. We track minutes on the bike, because it kind of alleviates any issues of skill or ability and distance and mileage. If we just track the minutes the kids are on the bike, it's kind of a fair and level playing field. So that's kind of fun.
How do they react to that? Do
They love it.
They love it.
Like, how many minutes did I get? If I got here 15 minutes early, can I add that on? And I say, no, we're a 45-minute class. We're just going to keep track of this, because I'd be there for hours.
Yeah.
They're loving it. The kids can get about 5 hours in a month. If you could keep track of, if adults could do the same thing, wouldn't that be great?
Yeah. What brings you the most joy in that? I gotta wrap up.
Well, let's wrap up. It was great. Thanks so much for having me here.
I loved it. The conversation was great. Thank you, Tammy, and thank you, Michael. Just to wrap up, let me make sure. So, as we say in Portland Wheelman, take life by the handlebars, set some little goals, and let other cyclists help you attain them. And don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. And check out the website at northwestbicyclesafetycouncil.org and learn more about us. Thank you.